Tomorrow night, the Republican candidates for president will take the stage in Milwaukee for their fourth primary debate, and it could be a contentious one as questions continue surrounding Ben Carson's personal history, as well as Marco Rubio's personal spending. A new poll has Carson and Donald Trump in a virtual tie for the top spot in South Carolina, with Marco Rubio coming in third. In Monmouth's last South Carolina poll in late August, Trump led Carson 30% to 15%. Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush round out the top five, while none of the other 10 candidates in the field scores higher than 2%. Kevin Robillard, reporter for Politico, joins us now from Washington to break it all down. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Great to be on.
So what do you make of this new South Carolina poll?
Well, I think one thing that some people have pointed out that's very interesting there is that Rubio is doing better. He's now sort of firmly in that third spot, but he's getting that support from the place you don't really expect him to, which is that he's getting a lot of support from older voters. There's always been a lot of talk of how Rubio has sort of a cross-generational appeal, that he could reach out to younger voters. But the fact is, to win a Republican primary, particularly in South Carolina, you're going to need to appeal to older voters. That's who's going to make up the bulk of that group, and the fact that he is doing that well there is overall a good sign for him.
So is that surprising to you? Because, I mean, the Jeb Bush campaign had tried to paint Senator Rubio as the GOP Obama, in part because of his youth, because of his lack of legislative experience. Is this at all surprising?
It is surprising, but at the same time, you have to think of what people mean when they say that Rubio is youthful and can appeal to young people. It's not really a question of appealing to young people in a Republican primary. The fact is, the young people who are voting in Republican primaries are likely to be very, very hardcore conservatives, because not that many young people vote in primaries in general. What they're really looking for when they say that Rubio can appeal to young people is Rubio's appeal in a general election. So it's really an electability argument. It's an argument that Rubio is more likely to beat Hillary Clinton than some of these other candidates. It's not an argument that Rubio is going to rack up young people's votes during the primary. There you'll see a lot of support. Generally, it goes to sort of libertarian candidates or to very conservative candidates, because that's the people who are young and voting in a Republican primary are likely to be extremely conservative.
All right, Kevin, let's talk about the two frontrunners. The scrutiny first over Dr. Carson's past. In an age where most politicians run on their bio, the Carson campaign is saying that this vetting is a liberal media attack on him. Politico has been very involved in the reporting. In fact, you guys were the ones that broke the story about the appointment or lack thereof to West Point. Has he done enough to explain himself, and does that at all stick, the fact that the media is looking into the details that were written about in his book, details that he's made in interviews with other reporters?
Yeah, I mean, look, all Ben Carson really has to back his campaign is his biography. You know, Ben Carson, because he's an outsider candidate with no political experience, his other life experiences are all voters have to evaluate him by. So that makes the truthfulness and what those experiences say about him matter that much more than they might matter for, say, a Marco Rubio or a Ted Cruz, who can point to, oh, this is how I've behaved in the U.S. Senate, or a Jeb Bush, who can say, oh, this is how I behaved as governor of Florida. The only hints we have for Carson's biography are how he's behaved and how he's described his own behavior in his books, in other writings, things like that. And right now, the fact is that there's a lot of questions being raised about a lot of the stories he's telling in that book, and it just opens to more and more questions about his overall behavior.
Yeah, I mean, objectively speaking, Dr. Carson's life story is an incredible one, coming up, being raised in Detroit, very dangerous city where he grew up in specifically, and then going on to Yale, becoming this world-renowned neurosurgeon. He is now, I think, his campaign is looking to use more of that as they plan campaign ads in a way to defend himself.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So it's a super PAC backing his campaign, and really this super PAC basically drafted Carson into the race. Obviously the super PACs and campaigns can't directly coordinate, but this super PAC seems to, really be on the same page as Carson's campaign, and they have said that they're now looking for, patients Carson operated on and things like that to appear in television ads. This isn't actually a super uncommon thing, particularly, if you have a candidate who is, a fantastic surgeon, that it's almost an obvious thing to do if you want to sort of make positive ads about him, to find people he's worked with, find people whose lives he's saved. So I think that is a smart tactic, and it can sort of it gets to the heart of the question, which is Carson's narrative is all he has. They need to present the best version of that life story that they can.
Kevin, let me ask you real quick about Donald Trump on SNL. Did you watch it? And beyond the ratings, was there any real benefit to his campaign?
I mean, I caught it the next day. Is this a real benefit to his campaign? I mean, probably not. The thing is, Trump does generate ratings, and sort of Trump's appeal, and so much of what Trump's bombast is about, is the idea that Trump always wins, sort of. So the fact that it did get such good ratings adds to that. The entire thing, everyone's always asked, what will Trump do when he clearly starts losing? Just because half of what he talks about is how he's leading in the polls. So what is he going to talk about when he's not leading in the polls anymore? And I think all of this, whenever Trump can sort of get a bigger or better or most of anything, that's a good thing for him.
And let's talk about Marco Rubio, who is fast on Donald Trump's heels, certainly, and also sort of inching up ever since the last debate performance. There have been some questions about his Republican credit card. Doesn't seem to be sticking, though, right? I mean, people, if anything, a lot of people will be able to relate to that. You've got a credit card, even one that may be issued by your company, and you might have put on a personal expense if you paid for it. There's nothing in there that alleges corruption, anything that he actually did wrong. I mean, is this something that he's going to get over without a problem and continue to climb in the polls?
I think it's more than likely that he does. The interesting thing is it's become clear that the Republican Party of Florida, which is who gave Rubio that credit card, during that time there were sort of bad, occasionally shady things going on within the Republican Party of Florida. Several officials linked to it have since gone to jail or been put on trial for different sort of misuse of funds, things like that. None of that has ever touched Rubio. And the strange thing is, actually, if you look at how much Rubio spent during his 4 years running the Florida House, which is, this card was supposed to be there for political expenses. Rubio really didn't spend that much. It was $65,000. But his predecessor, the man who followed him as Speaker, spent twice as much of that in half the time. So there is a lot of, this is money people spend when they're trying to run sort of statewide campaigns like this. For example, one expense that's drawn some attention is Rubio went to Las Vegas, but that was for a fundraiser and he met donors, and that's the sort of thing that is done in political fundraising circles. So there are a few things here that, you could pull out in isolation and they might shock some people a little bit, but overall it's not going to be a huge problem for his campaign.
All right, Kevin Robillard, thank you so much for talking with us. We appreciate it.
Great to be on.